Diesel, the devious engine, had played one trick too many. Having nearly gotten Fergus to be sent to the scrapyards, he was relocated to work at the scrapyards to be as far away from the other engine as possible. Diesel didn't want to be anywhere near the scrapyard. Despite his arrogance and pride of being revolutionary, he was very terrified to work at the scrapyards. He considered it a desolate place. When he arrived that evening, a scruffy-looking foreman marched up to him. "You're on night duty tonight, mate, so do as you're told, and we won't have any trouble at all." "What are my duties?" Diesel said meekly. "You're a shunter, are you? Please shunt those lines of scrapped engines to be cut up." He then looked over at Harry and Bert. "Harry and Bert will tell you what to do." The two Diesels smirked at each other. Diesel sighed. "Yes, sir," and he set off to work. Diesel slunk quietly to the sidings, where he found many old rusted engines. There were the words "scrap" written in broad letters across their tanks. He gazed at their lifeless faces and broken apart cabs and was overcome with a sense of dread. Diesel began to feel sick. He had never been to a scrapyard before and didn't realize how awful it was to see an engine no longer alive. Shutting his eyes tightly, he gently buffered up to the old engine's buffers and set to work at once. As he quickly shunted them into place, the cutters prepared their torches. There, they began to remove the smoke box doors, funnels, chimneys, domes, and everything in between. As Diesel, Harry, and Bert watched the cutters at work, many things were suddenly put into perspective for poor Diesel. He had spent many years teasing the steam engines about how they would be scrapped to make way for the diesels. But in his teasing, he never stopped to think just how terrible it was to scrap an engine. The engines were reduced to mere shells, and then into nothing altogether. These engines were once living, breathing machines, but now they were the same as the other scrap iron. Diesel felt an overwhelming sadness for the engines he had never met. Without saying a word to anyone, he slunk back to the sheds. Diesel quivered in the shed, a much wiser engine now. He felt as a prisoner, now feeling trapped and alone. He peered up at the moon and sighed dreadfully. Harry and Bert joined in. "I've really upset Sir Topham Hatt one too many times," he moaned. "He won't ever trust me again, and neither will the other engines." Harry and Bert listened closely, and believe it or not, they felt the same for Diesel. The three nasty Diesels had a lot to think about that night. The next night, the scrapyard was bustling with activity. Harry and Bert worked hard, pushing and pulling scrap trucks into place. It was a very tough job, but the Diesels didn't mind the grim work. Diesel, on the other hand, returned to shunting the scrapped engines into place. He was sorry to see that there were more engines ready to be cut up. Diesel couldn't be sure, but something felt different about these engines. Then, a thick fog settled into the night. Diesel found it hard to see. He couldn't grasp his bearings. Everything seemed spookier and spookier. Then Diesel stopped. Diesel thought he heard the sound of a faint whisper among the old engines. He listened very carefully. The whispers grew very louder. Diesel froze in fear as the echoes became more clearer and more louder. What did I do? Diesel quivered. You're the reason why we lost our way, echoed the voice. We're really useless now because of you. But I've never sent anyone for scrap, Diesel stammered. You wished it on us, and because of you, we've lost our way. I'm sorry for sending every steam engine off the path. I promise I won't do it again. Then the whisper grew stern. Don't forget that one day you'll become scrap too. Then the voices drifted away and the yard felt silent. Diesel felt helpless and didn't know what to do or what to say. The old scrapped engine stood tall against the sky. Diesel knew he had to leave. He couldn't bear the chance of seeing another engine scrapped. Then another thought popped into Diesel's radiator. What if he could be scrapped too? What if he wasn't revolutionary or modern at all? Without saying a word to anyone, Diesel charged into the night. Diesel didn't know where he was going or what he was going to do, but anything was better than facing his demons on the cold, damp sidings of the scrapyards. At the junction, Edward and Henry were resting comfortably in their sheds when they heard a familiar horn. Diesel backed down carefully into the sheds. Henry and Edward were very surprised. Diesel asked Edward, "What are you doing here?" "Shouldn't you be at the scrapyards?" demanded Henry. Diesel took a deep breath and told the engines his experience at the scrapyards. Henry and Edward were very surprised. "Can I please stay the night with you two? I don't feel like spending the night at the scrapyards ever again." Edward smiled. "Of course you can, Diesel," he smiled. "Every engine deserves a second chance. Though after this encounter, I presume you'll try to be really useful and not be devious again." "I promise," declared Diesel, "to never taunt you with the thoughts of scrap ever again. Henry and Edward felt better. As long as it stays, wheezed Henry. And with that, the engines fell asleep. Diesel thought he would never have to experience demons ever again.